Okay, it is now 12:15, and I'm about to attempt to do my response to the first question from the digital ethnography prompt questions. So I'm going to try to tackle number one here. So just bear with me. If it seems like I'm reading off of the computer, I am, is because I have a prompt here. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started on this. I'll read the question first and then go ahead into my response. So, prompt question set 1A. What kinds of personal, cultural knowledge or popular knowledge influence your thinking about ethnicity and racially diverse students? What connections can you make between this knowledge and the new Darwinist perspective? My knowledge consists of my personal experiences, media, news, peer, and family attitudes. So everything that kind of culminates is what I am, what I believe, what I perceive, my own filter. Every little piece of everything I've ever experienced has either geared me or affected me in some way to see things in the way that I do. So everyone is highly individualistic, and that's the first thing that we need to keep in mind, is that everyone perceives things differently. When it comes to my beliefs, I'm in a transition period when I'm starting to seriously understand and approve and just really get to know differences within groups. And then I'm supportive of that. I see that more often. I understand that it's out there and not everyone sees things in the way that I see them. I talked about what is perceived right by some may not be perceived right by others, a little more in the journal table, so you can read that there. When it comes to the new Darwinist approach, I understand where this derives from, but I don't really accept it. I don't think that the new Darwinism is a reasonable device for studying groups of people because it fails to look at everything comprehensively. Claims of cultural superiority may exist, but truly only in a small format in some small way in some small period of time. If you look at the history of man, I mean, some seeds may have fallen in perfect spots for some groups and not in others. But I mean, it's such a short history of people that I don't believe that anyone is culturally superior. I think that this whole concept of new Darwinism fails to look at the fundamental attribution error, which is a psychology term basically saying that we don't think about the situation behind everything. We fail to comprehend that there's so much random and so much situation that makes things happen the way that people act in certain situations compared to others. It's all situation and environment based. And we like to say that everything comes from within. That's why it's so easy to say with race and ethnicity that, oh, these people, type A, they are, this description, this characteristic, this trait, and here's another group, and that's this, this, and this. But, I mean, everyone is so different. It's really hard to classify ethnicity and race, and race is a concept which, again, in the journal table I discuss, is a term we should be working out of our culture, but it still exists. So no, I don't believe in new Darwinism to continue, although I do. Like Ruby Payne's work, it does seem apparent, and not that I like it, I'm saying, like Ruby Payne's work, it does seem apparent, it does seem to exist, but I don't think that there's enough evidence for it. I don't think it's something we should really focus on. It's something that I don't really believe in. I can understand it, but I don't really believe it. So to go on to question 1, part B, do you perceive the culture of ethnic or racial groups to be a deficit or an asset in the learning of schools? Why? Okay. Unfortunately, yes. I think that this has a lot to do with a combination of self-fulfilling prophecies and improper instruction. It is no one's fault that public schools are inherently middle class, as Ruby Payne likes to say, or that minorities exist among classrooms. The fact that someone will always be a minority, someone will always be a minority in some term. And I mean this in the nicest way possible. For example, 26 students are visual learners, and 2 of them are very hands-on. They are the minority in the class because it makes sense for the teacher to emphasize the visual approach because it's what's most effective. They get better scores out of most of their students when they use the visual approach rather than hands-on because it's what most students want. There's always going to be a minority. And even if the teacher's a really good teacher and puts in a lot of extra work to make sure that the other two students are successful, it's not always like that in society. We really want to fit the mold for everyone else, and then those that are kind of left behind, well, that's unfortunate. If you can put in the time and the effort for them, good. But if not, they fall behind, and that's something, that's a whole other story. But yes, I do believe that in some way it can be a deficit or an asset. When it comes to the asset, I've lost my place here. Forgive me. It is comparable to when a Hispanic student has no teachers like him or peers who are similar in style, culture, or appearance. It will obviously be harder for this student in the same sense because they don't have anyone to relate to model the way. When it comes to like scaffolding, it's much easier when someone's like you and they can explain things in a way that you get it. It can be done cross borders, of course, but it's just easier when you are in the same type of learning style. So yes, culture definitely can be a deficit or an asset. But in the opposite, if you are part of the majority and you blend well with your environment and your surroundings, your culture may be kind of, a booster. It may make you, in some way, more prepared. So number C, letter C. How do your answers to these questions shape your thoughts going into the clinical setting, your thoughts while interacting in the clinical setting, and your thoughts after completing the clinical experience? I would say it shapes my thoughts throughout because I know that I'm looking at culture and ethnicity, again, through my own filter. The whole perceptual filter is my own, just like you have your own, and everyone in the class has their own perceptual filter. So I realize that when I keep ethnicity as a construct in my head, it's my own, and I really need to have it in the back of in my mind, but I also need to be open and just open my eyes and my ears and my feelings towards whatever may happen. And today was the first experience, and there were a lot of good things that came out of it. There was a lot of learning, a lot of growth in 3 hours. It was incredible how much I learned from that. And I think that's the most important thing when it comes to this whole project, is just being open and really just putting myself out there to learn as much as I can. I don't really want to dwell on the concept of race and ethnicity as much as I probably should. I'd rather just have that notion in the back of my mind and experience it. But again, if I kind of forget that it's there, then I know I won't be thinking outside of the box. I'll just be thinking of my own way. And my whole basis of this project is, in a sense, to put myself in their shoes. And I need to act as the volunteer and the disciplinary person and a role model, but I also really want to act as in their shoes and understand where these children and these students are coming from. And so yeah, I think that is everything. Thanks for listening.